I washed a load of socks the other day and accidentally I put it on a regular 40-degree wash rather than the 40-degree wool wash. Some of my socks felted. I wasn't washing all my socks, just a few, because I needed to wash some of my trainer socks. So I put whichever socks were in my washing basket in, but it wasn't all of them. Some of them felted, some of them went very fluffy, and some of them survived. And one of them kind of got shredded. So this is the other sock. So I did a swirly toe. So this is top down. And I did a swirly heel, also top down. There's a little bit of fluff left on the socks from some of the other socks. I haven't really taken all the fluff off properly yet. So they do look slightly fluffy. I don't know what happened. I think this must have caught on something in the machine because both the heel and the toe on this sock are completely shredded. So the heel is just a tiny bit, so that's where the shaping on the heel starts. So I'm going to have to go back to there. The toe is a bit worse. It went back, that's where the shaping, so it's gone back right to the beginning of the toe. So I'm not quite sure what happened, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to try and fix it. Luckily, I do have the yarn left. I even have the label. It is YarnAddict, which is Danish aloe sock wool. It was a very cheap sock wool. So, I mean, if the socks were ruined and I couldn't use them again, fine, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But I have got the yarn available, so I might as well try and fix it. So that's what I'm going to show you now. Okay, so it is a little bit challenging doing this because I do have my hands around the camera, so it is a little bit challenging to actually see what I'm doing. This is the side of the toe where it's unraveled the most. So this is the side I'm going to start, and that's the stitch that has unraveled more than all the other stitches. So I'm going to start by that one. Now the yarn is just very slightly felted, not properly felted, but just a teeny tiny bit. So that's probably not a bad thing because it just helps the stitches hold together a bit more. So I've got that stitch that's unraveled the most, and I picked up the stitch next to it. And then I'm just going to go around and try and pick up all the stitches from the same row. Just trying to unravel the yarn as I go. Got a spare needle here in case I need, because the yarn is slightly felted. It's a little bit difficult. So I've got a spare sewing needle here just to help me if I need to pull anything. Okay, put that down. Okay, so I've got the first two stitches. So all I need to do is kind of follow that last strand around to make sure I'm picking up the same row. And then I'm going to try and unravel it as I go. So the yarn that's left here, I'm not going to re-knit with that because I have plenty left over of this yarn. Now if I didn't have this yarn, if these were socks that I'd knitted a while ago and I didn't have the yarn anymore, I would probably just do a contrast heel and toe. Even if the other sock had the original yarn, I would be happy with one sock being in contrast heel and toe, because most of the time I wear them inside shoes, or I wear them with my slippers at home, or I wear them at night. So, you know, at the end of the day, not very many people are going to see them, but also I don't really mind if they do, because I can then just tell the story on how I fix them. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do, just to make it a little bit easier, is I'm just going to cut these strands at the top there, because it just makes it a little bit easier to just unravel, because this is unraveled back to just about where I started the decreases for the toe, which means that up here there might be just one stitch, but down here there might be several. So that makes it a little bit tricky to unravel. So let's just see if we can pull the next one down. So if I undo a stitch at the top here, I might end up with, I don't know, 6 stitches or something at the bottom, so you've got to be a little bit careful, but I don't think these are going to unravel that easily because the yarn is very, very slightly felted. These didn't felt as much as some of the other socks. If these had felted, I probably would have just binned them because the yarn is pretty cheap. Right. The reason why I'm unraveling as I go is because it's easier to make sure I get into the correct row. I could just put my needle in all the way around, but it's a little bit difficult to make sure that I actually get into the correct row. So I'm just going to do 3 stitches there. I'm going to see if I can unravel a bit more. It is a little bit difficult at the top here, and I think that's because obviously I've woven in the end, so you probably got the end kind of mixed in up here. That's why I've got several, I don't know. I think I'm going to try and just cut this bit off because I think it's not unraveling properly because I had woven in the end, so that kind of complicates things a little bit. And then let's see if we can unravel some of this. There we go. That's a bit easier. Okay, so I hope you can see what I'm doing. It isn't very easy to film this as I'm doing it because of the complexity of this and the fact that I got my hands around the camera. So I hope you can see what I'm doing. If the yarn is kind of stuck a bit, I just kind of pull it. It doesn't matter if I break this yarn because, you know, I'm going to bin it anyway, so it doesn't matter. So just checking that I haven't missed any stitches here, and that looks fine. So you see I've got quite a few stitches there already. That one, there we go, and next one, and the next one. If one of them, like this one, unraveled one row further down, I'm just going to put that stitch and the strand behind it, which is the yarn that I knitted. I'm going to put those both on the needle and I'll pick it up later because it's just easier to do it that way. Okay, so I think the reason why it's a little bit at the top here, a little bit difficult, is because that's where my end had woven in. So I've never had this happen in the washing machine before, so I've no idea how it happened, why it happened. A few things have been washed since. I was thinking maybe I need to have a look inside my machine to make sure there aren't anything sharp in there. But I think I washed a couple of things since and that's been fine. So okay, let's just see how many stitches we got here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. I'm struggling to make it unravel again, so I'm going to just cut some more of this stuff up here, just because I think that's where my ends are woven into this black and white yarn at the top, and that's just making it difficult. So I'm just going to just chop that off. This makes it a bit easier to unravel. Luckily these were actually knitted from the top down. But even if they weren't, if I knitted them from the toe up, I could still do the toe, redo the toe from the top down, which is what I'll be doing. It would have looked slightly different than the other toe, but I don't think it's enough of a difference for anyone to really notice. So that one has unraveled one stitch further as well, because I pulled it a little bit hard. Oh, actually, it's 2 rows further down, so I'm just going to put that on the needle. Main thing when you're unpicking, whether you are doing something like this or just unpicking a row or 2 of your knitting, is to just make sure that you catch the live stitches. doesn't really matter if they've unraveled a bit further than they were supposed to. Just get them on your needles and then you can go back and fix it later. Oh, that one as well. It's much better to go back and fix it later than to try and fix it and then risk the next one unraveling. Okay, so I think I'm going to pull like a magic loop through because it's going to be a little bit difficult to get the needle. I won't be able to get them all on the same side of the needle because of the fact that it's a fairly small circumference and I was working magic loop. So I've just pulled outside of my magic loop and then I'm going to go into that one, and that one, and that one. So up here, I've just got a few stitches, but those stitches are going to turn into all those stitches down here because of the fact that I've decreased. Just trying to undo some of this white and black bits at the top here because I've cut those. So then I can unravel these blue and green, blue and teal threads. Oh, that one also unraveled a few rows down. So we'll just put that on the needle. If it only unravels one row down, I tend to try and put the strand that it unraveled, the yarn from that row, across the top of the needle as well. But because there went several rows down, I just put the loop, this actual stitch on the needle. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is that you've got the stitch. So it has unraveled a little bit further down on a few stitches, but I will fix that on the first row. Main thing is that I've got the loops on my needle. Okay, so we're nearly there now. Don't have that many stitches left. Oh, there we go. So some of these I've got slightly felted, so they're a little bit difficult to unravel. So I have to like pull a little bit. And when you pull them, just grab the actual knitted fabric and pull against it so that as you pull it, it doesn't suddenly run all the way down. If you kind of put your finger where the knitted fabric is, you might be able to stop it from unraveling too far. There we go. And that was actually a knit two together that I managed to undo. There we go. And nearly there now, only a few stitches left. When you start a job like this, so when I picked the socks out of the machine, I was hanging them up, I was just horrified by the state of them, and it was very tempting to just chuck them straight in the bin. But it is worth to just slow down for a minute and take a minute and see if you can fix it. Okay, so I've unpicked all of them now. So I'm going to check that I've got 32 stitches on my needle, and I'm also going to pick up the ones that I've accidentally unraveled. Doesn't matter if the beginning of my round matches my original beginning of the round. I would probably knit just knit a row and then try to fix the drop stitches, but because there are several, I think I'm just going to slip my stitches around the needle, and then I can also double check I've got the right number of stitches. So that one is the first one that had unraveled. So I got the stitch there, and that's the strand that it needs to be knitted through. So if I got them both on my needle like that, I can just lift the stitch over the strand and slip it. And when you're slipping stitches like this, where you just want to move them from one needle to the other, you have to slip them purlwise. If you slip them knitwise, they're twisted, they twist, and then when you get to the next round, they will all be twisted, and you have to knit them all through the back loop. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. That's another one. That's unraveled one row. So I don't know whether you can see, I got the stitch there and the strand that it should be knitted through next to it. So I can just grab that stitch and lift it over. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 25, so this is one that's unraveled 2, so 3 rows, then 1, 2, 3, so I think that's 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and I'll just drop one off, 32, that's 32, 33, 34. So I actually only want 32 on each needle, so I've got 32 here, so I'm going to pull those around to the other side, and then I'm going to rearrange my needles and pull out my magic loop. So I had 64 stitches, so I want 32 on each needle, or each side of the magic loop needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this one's unraveled 2 rows. So you have to kind of look at the back and see how many strands you have, and one strand is 1 row. So that's the first strand. So what I've done is I've slipped it knitwise onto my right hand needle, and then I take and put my needle under that first strand, the lowest strand, then I lift the stitch over. Then I put it under the next strand and lift it over. You can get a crochet hook and do using a crochet hook if you want to. And then when I put it back on the left hand needle, because it's twisted now, so if I leave it there, I have to remember to knit it through the back loop. So if I put my needle in, I can just slip it back. I also just check that I actually picked up those stitches correctly and that they're not twisted. So how many stitches have I got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, again 15, 1 row, 2 row, that's number 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Oh, that one has unraveled a row, so again I can lift that stitch up on that, start again. I can lift that strand up onto the left hand needle tip in front of the stitch that's unraveled 1 row and just lift it over. So how many have we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and then last one I can just knit because my working yarn is here. So I've got 32 stitches on each needle. I'm going to leave that strand and weave it in later, and then I'm going to start shaping the toe. So the toe is shaped by working knit 6, knit 2 together, I think it is. Let me just find some yarn to join in. The yarn's got a knot in it, so we'll break that off. Now I don't really care if I'm not at the right point in the kind of color repeat on the yarn. I mean, if you're really fussed about that, you can try and work it out. I think it's after. Actually, what I'm going to do is just take this black and white off, because there's only a tiny bit of black and white left. So we'll break that off, and then we'll start with this blue. Apologies if you can hear my dog running around, his little feet tapping on the floor. He was asleep, but my husband came downstairs, so the dog started running around. Okay, so I'm going to re-knit this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, knit 2 together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, knit 2 together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, knit 2 together. Hang on, let me just make sure that one hasn't. Okay, so that one was a bit funny. The second one of those knit 2 together, and it has actually unraveled. If you're not sure, if you look at the back and there's like a loose strand at the back, then you know it has unraveled. So we're going to just lift that over. I think that was my knit 2 together. 2, 4, 6. Knit 2 together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Knit 2 together. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. So I'm just keeping an eye on it to make sure I haven't missed any stitches. I may have unraveled a row and I have missed them. Easiest thing to do is to look on the back of the fabric, because then you can see a strand that's just kind of floating loose, and then you know that that's when you've raised drop down a row. I thought that was another one, but I'd unraveled the row. Let's just see. 2, 4, 5. Felt like that one felt a bit funny when I was knitting it, so I thought that one had unraveled a row, but it hadn't. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. And knit 2 together. Now, because the yarn that I'm knitting with now is, you know, fresh yarn, if you like, it hasn't been knitted with or anything, it will probably look a little bit different from the yarn I have knitted with. I mean, these socks haven't been worn that many times. They've probably been washed 2 or 3 times. And on the final wash, when they broke, they did felt slightly. So the yarn I'm knitting with will look a little bit newer, but it doesn't matter. A couple of washes and it'll be fine. So I'm not going to do a plain round. So I'm going to just carry on and finish this toe. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the heel. So what I need to decide on the heel is whether I unpick all of it back to the start of the heel shaping, because the heel is not as badly damaged. So you can see the heel's just unraveled a few rows. It's not gone all the way back to here where that black and white is. It's where I started the shaping. So I might with the heel just unpick as far as it's unraveled and then re-knit the last bit. I'll see how I feel when I get there. But the heel's not as badly damaged, but it's exactly the same shaping. It's got this swirly shape, so the shaping is exactly the same. I have the same number of stitches, 64 in total, 32 on each needle. So I'm going to do exactly the same to the heel as I did to the toe, and I'm going to carry on shaping this toe. I'm not going to sit and make you watch me knit all of it because it'll take a while. So I'll switch the camera off and I'll come and show you when I finished fixing it. As I was knitting row 2, I just realized that there was one stitch here that looked a bit loose. So I don't know if you can see it, but that stitch 2 rows down, it looks a little bit big. So I looked on the back and there is a strand here that's not been knitted. So that was the stitch I missed. So I knitted it on the last row, but it wasn't knitted on the row below. So there's 3 rows here that need to be knitted up. So if I you can use a crochet hook to do this, but if you haven't got a crochet candy, it can be easier just to do it with your knitting needles. So if I slip it knitwise onto my right hand needle, then I put that right hand needle under the lowest of the 3 strands, then I lift it over, then I go into under the next strand, lift it over, and under the next strand and lift it over. And then when I put it back on my left hand needle, just make sure I untwist it again, because when you do it knitwise, you untwist it, so just make sure you untwist it when you put it back. So I'm on a decrease round now, and the reason that looks a bit messy is because that's where I joined in the yarn. 2, 4, 5, knit 2 together. All fixed. So that went better than I thought it was. The toe is redone. So I re-knitted from about here. You can tell that this yarn, blue yarn here, is a little bit fresher, should we say, than this yarn, but it's fine. Wear it a few times, wash it a couple of times, and it'll be fine. So I went back to here, and then on the heel I only went back to this lilac bit. So I didn't go all the way back to the start of the heel shaping, which is here. I just went back to this lilac bit, was the bit I re-knitted. So I'm very happy with that. I was slightly horrified when I pulled the socks out of the washing machine and realised they'd been shredded. But when I realised where they had been shredded, I thought, well, that's not too bad. So if they'd gone like in the middle somewhere, it would have been more difficult to fix. But because it was the toe and the heel, I was quite lucky really, because that's fairly easy to fix. Hope you enjoyed this little video. Please click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and please give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And tell me, has anything like this ever happened to you? Have you had to make a fix like this? Leave me a comment and tell me. Also, if your toe or your afterthought heel wears out, you can use this same technique to re-knit it. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.